Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm a trainer here at the MAC. I'm going to take some time to show you some yoga moves that will hopefully help to loosen you up and help you build some strength. We're going to start by having a seat on the floor, making ourselves comfortable, and what we want to do is to think about how we sit. It's a very active posture. We don't just kind of come in and just hang out here. I want you to think about what's called your sits bones. Your sits bones are those two little knobby bumps on the bottom of your pelvis. And what I'm going to ask you to do while you're here is just press down into the mat with those. And hopefully what you're going to find is you're going to get this nice little lengthening of the spine. So as you're sitting, you're creating space in the spine. And then I'm going to ask you to start taking your attention to your breath. So as we sit here, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just start to breathe. And then as you breathe, I want you to start thinking about increasing the length of your inhalation and increasing the length of your exhalation. And keeping the eyes closed, just use this time to prepare yourself for the practice. You want to be able to not so much empty all the thoughts out of your head, but at least get them to slow down. So as you inhale, taking a nice deep breath, fill up the belly, the rib cage, the chest. And then as you exhale, draw the navel towards the spine, draw the rib cage together. Just get every last bit of breath out of the body. So we'll stay here breathing for a few minutes just to get ourselves settled. And then we're going to begin with a couple of stretches. So what I'm going to have you do is we're going to come into a table pose by coming onto our hands and knees. We want the knees directly underneath the hips and about hip distance apart. The wrists are directly underneath the shoulders. Fingers are spread wide apart. And what I want you to think about is keeping the back nice and flat. And then from here, what we're going to do is a couple of what's called cat-cow poses. And what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to initiate the movement from the hips. So we're going to inhale, and we're going to take the tailbone up towards the ceiling, allow the spine to drop down as the heart moves forward and lifts up. And then as we exhale, we're going to take the tailbone down, roll the spine up towards the ceiling, draw the chin towards the chest, and then inhale and do the reverse. And I'm going to ask you to do that a few times. And what I want you to keep in mind is we're initiating the movement from the hips, so it's not just a big up and down, it's a nice rolling of the spine. And you can do this a few times, and then come to neutral. And then from neutral, we're going to tuck the toes under, and we're going to take the hips back and bring the forehead down towards the mat. From here, we're going to inhale, and then on the exhalation, we're going to walk the hands over to the right. Keeping the hips right where they are, we're going to get a nice little stretch from the left hip all the way out towards that left pinky. We'll stay here for a couple of breaths. And then from here, we're going to inhale, walk the hands back to center. And then exhale, walk the hands over to the left. Again, keeping the hips in place, so we really get that nice long stretch along the right side of the body. And then from here on the next inhalation, we are going to walk the hands back to center, keeping the forehead on the mat. What I'm going to ask you to press the hands into the mat, pressing the knuckles a little further into the mat and just gently pressing the mat away. So what we do is we start to create an energy flow that's coming from the knuckles all the way to the hips. So as you press the mat away, this is the energy flow going up towards your hip, and this is important because this is what we use when we come into our downward facing dog. So as long as we can remember that, we're going to be doing okay. So from here, we're going to inhale and come up with the table. We're going to tuck the toes under. We're going to inhale and bring the knees up and come into a plank. We want to work the elbows to out and back. So the elbows are pointing towards the back. We're creating a nice solid plank here. Crown of the head is moving forward. Heels are pressing back. And then from here, we're going to inhale and then exhale, bring the hips back and come into our first downward dog. I'm going to say start with the knees just slightly bent. Again, pressing the knuckles into the mat, fingers spread wide apart. We want the energy flowing up the arms, up along the spine. We'll drive the rib cage together. We're going to get this little outward rotation of the upper arms, and I'm going to have you bend your elbows just a little bit. So the energy comes up to the hips, and when the energy comes to the hips, the legs grab a hold of the hips and start to pull everything back so the tailbone is heading up towards the ceiling. Stay here for a few breaths. If your hamstrings are a little looser, you can start to take the heels down towards the floor. Just don't lose the lower back. And then from here, we're going to inhale, come up on the toes, bend the knees, look to the thumbs, and step both feet forward between the hands. Now, if you have trouble with that, you can always just walk the hands up as well. We're going to inhale here, bring the hands to the shins and lengthen out in the spine. We're going to exhale and fold forward and bring the hands down to the floor. If your hands can't reach the floor, you can always keep them on your calves. You can keep them on your shins or your ankles. Just give yourself a little bit of support. So as we press down in the feet, the sits bones are lifting up towards the ceiling. The legs are staying nice and solid. But the core, the body, the torso is just hanging. As if you were wearing a heavy sweater. That's how it should feel, just sort of draping down towards the floor. Let the head hang. Give it a couple of yeses. A couple of no's. Release the neck. And then from here, we're going to inhale, sweep the hands out to the sides, coming halfway up. And then exhale, sweep the hands up. And then we're going to bring the hands down. So next we're going to run through a sun salutation. It's a series of movements which are very connected to your breathing. And we're just going to go ahead and do it. So coming to the front of the mat, taking the feet about hip distance apart, we're going to lift the toes and give them a little bit of a wiggle, just to loosen them up a bit. We want to be able to press down in the four corners of the feet so we get that grounding, but at the same time we get this nice little rebound of energy that lifts the muscles upward. So you have this lengthening in the body going in both directions. The crown of the head is lifting up towards the ceiling. The arms are resting to the side. The chin is just nice and neutral. And then from here, we're going to inhale and we're going to sweep the hands up towards the ceiling, keeping the shoulders down the back. And then as we exhale, we're going to fold at the hips and bring the hands down towards the floor. Inhaling, we're going to come up on the fingertips and lengthen out in the spine. Exhaling, we're going to bend the knees, take the hands flat on the floor, fingers spread wide apart, middle fingers pointing forward. And then from here on the next exhalation, we're going to walk both feet back and find a plank. So again, here we want to think about those elbows sort of making their way towards the back of the room. Keeping a nice solid plank, we're going to inhale here and press forward. Exhale, bend the elbows, taking the elbows straight back along the rib cage as we come into, as we lower into our plank. We're going to inhale and sweep forward into an upward facing dog. Tops of the feet are flat on the floor. If you can't come down in a full plank, you can always bring the knees down to the floor and then lower yourself down. So from here, we want to keep the shoulders nice and broad, so the back of the body is nice and as broad as the front of the body. The heart continues to move forward and lift up towards the ceiling. The head is going to lift up from the base of the skull. So rather than sort of taking the chin up and crunching the back of your neck, we're just going to lift from the base of the skull. Pressing down on the tops of the feet to keep the legs active. We're going to tuck the toes under, inhale. Just to start, come up to plank and then exhale and push back. Downward facing dog. Staying here. Again, fingers are wide apart. Pressing down on the knuckles and pressing the mat away. There you go. Hips are going back. We're lengthening out the spine. Lengthening out the spine is more important than straightening out the back of the legs. I could care less about the backs of the legs. I want to see the spine be nice and long. This is where the work is being done. And then if you have a question about where you should be in your downward dog, I'm going to just show you one thing. So, Eddie, come into your plank. Don't move your hands and feet. You can see here, the shoulders are now passing the wrists, so walk your hands forward. So if you start your plank, before you come into your downward facing dog, this is going to give you a better idea of where the distance should be. So we're going to inhale here and then exhale, take the hips back. There we go. How does that feel? Good. Looks good. From here, we're going to inhale, come up on the toes, bend the knees, look to the thumbs, and step both feet forward. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, sweep the hands out to the sides as you come up, and then exhale, use your core to draw yourself up. Bring the hands up towards the sky, and then bringing the hands down. So you can do that 3, 4, 5 times just in succession, and what you're going to find is that's going to also bring up your heart rate up. So by the time you finish your sun salutations, you're going to feel pretty good. You're going to be nice and loose. You're going to be feeling a little bit stronger, probably feeling a little taller as well. Okay, for the next pose, what we're going to do is we're going to take a nice wide stance on the mat. And what we're going to do is we're going to line up the outside edges of the feet with the outside edges of the mat. We're going to bring the hands out to the side, shoulder height. And we want to do, just so we know that we have enough distance between our feet, is generally speaking, if the ankles sort of drop right underneath the wrists, you've got a pretty good length. That's going to be different with everybody, but generally that works out well. We're going to bring the hands to the hips and we're going to rotate the left foot forward. And then we're going to bring the right toes forward just enough so that we can start to rotate the hips around and square with the front of the room. Now, for most of us, we're going to find that our hips are still at an angle, and that's fine. It's something to work on. We're just going to come around as far as we can, taking a block, taking 2 blocks. You can take it behind your ankle or on either side, like Jen is doing. And what we're going to do is we're going to press into the ball of the left foot and press that into the mat and just sort of press the mat away so that the energy is going up the leg and that left hip is drawing back. We're going to inhale here. Come on up, Jen. There we go. So we're pressing the mat away, inhaling, getting nice and long in front of the body. And then as we exhale, we're going to fold forward and then bring the hands down either to the floor or onto a block. Now, if you have tight hamstrings, being on a block is fine. You might have to take it onto onto a higher side. You can also take 2 blocks, like Jen's doing here. So what I'm going to ask Jen to do is continue to press into the ball of that left foot, press the mat away so the left hip starts to draw back. We're going to lengthen out the spine. So she should be feeling this on the back of her hamstrings and lengthening out in the spine. So from here, this is a great place to be, very safe. If you're having issues with tightness in the back of the legs, if you're not, and you want to do a little bit more, again, you can always come down to the floor. Just be mindful of lengthening out in the spine. If you want to get the upper body involved, you can come into a reverse prayer in the hands. Draw the shoulders back. Inhale, get nice and long, and then exhale and fold forward. So again, there's a lot of just lengthening going on here, and we're working on our balance as well. And then from here, we're going to inhale and come up. Exhale, come around. And then you can rotate and do it on the other side. So to help us out with our balance, we're going to come into a tree pose. We're going to step onto the right foot. And then here, pressing down in the 4 corners of the feet, again, we get this nice little rebound of energy up that right leg. We're going to pump up that right hip. As we inhale, bring up that left leg, and then exhale, bring it to rest on the inside of that right thigh, like Jen's doing. If you have trouble doing this, you can always bring your foot to the outside of your calf, and you can also bring it down towards your ankle, just to give you some progressions. So from here, we're going to take that left hip out, or rather the left knee out to the side so it lines up with the hip. We want the hips to stay nice and level. We're going to bring the hands out to the side, shoulder height, palms down. We're going to inhale, roll the palms of the hands up, get a nice outward rotation of the upper arms, and then as we exhale, we're going to take the hands up towards the ceiling, taking the shoulder blades down the back. Now, if you find that you get your hands up and they're bending, just take the hands out a little bit further to the side and just hold here. Continue to breathe. Keep pressing down on that right foot, so we're strengthening that right leg, keeping it nice and solid, getting our balance, and working that left knee out to the side as far as we can. This should be a very light pose. So even though we're grounded here, everything is lifting upward. And then from here, we're going to inhale. Exhale, bring the left knee forward. And then bring that foot down. And we're going to bring the hands down. So for this pose, we're going to do a Supta Baddha Konasana. So we're going to just take the hands to the knees and just allow ourselves to roll back. Take the feet flat on the floor, big toes touching. We're going to inhale, and then on the exhalation, we're going to roll the knees out to the sides. Allow the shoulder blades to drop down the back. And we're just going to stay here for a few breaths, pressing the soles of the feet together. If you're finding that you're getting a lot of tension in your inner thighs, like maybe it's a little too much of a stretch, you can always grab a couple of blocks, a couple of cushions, something you might have available, and put them underneath the outside of your thighs to give yourself a little bit of support. And you can stay here for several breaths. Just going to have you close your eyes and stay here. And then when you're ready, we're going to have you reach your hands down to the outside of the legs. Inhale, exhale, bring the knees together. So next we're going to do a little restorative pose. Taking your mat and taking up against the wall. We're going to come and stand close to the wall and come to sit. Then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to roll around, take the feet up, and just lie back and scooch our hips as close to the wall as possible. And just take the feet up along the wall. Now you can keep the feet just going straight up. You can also take the legs wide apart. And then I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes. And you're going to stay here for a few breaths. And what this is going to do is going to allow the body to just sort of relax. It allows the blood to flow in a different direction. Just all around, nice feeling when you come out of it. You're going to feel like you've had a really good rest. So stay here for as long as you feel comfortable. And then when you're ready, just bring the feet together, bend the knees, roll over to one side, and come up. So the last thing I'm going to have you do, which you should always do at the end of your yoga practice, is Shavasana. And this is just a nice, restful pose, sort of end your practice and sort of bring your body back to a kind of equilibrium. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bend the knees, take the feet flat on the floor, and roll back. Extend both legs out. Palms of the hands facing up. We let the shoulders drop down the spine. We're going to let the feet relax. They're just going to splay out to the sides. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to allow the body to get heavy and rest fully on the mat. So if you start like from your toes and start working to the crown of your head and you're feeling like you have any tension, just take your breath there. Sometimes just taking your attention to that part of the body will help it to release. You allow the body to get nice and heavy. You're going to close your eyes. And you're going to take your focus to your breathing. So just like we started earlier when we first began, again, clearing the thoughts in our head and just allowing us to get a nice rest. After staying here for several breaths, you can roll over to your right side. Go all the way over. There you go. Allow your forehead to rest on the mat. Take a couple of breaths here. And then push yourself up to sit. So just as we started, the legs can be crossed. You can have one foot in front of the other. The ankles just right in alignment. We're going to rest the hands on the knees and again press down the sit bones, sit up nice and tall. And From here, we'll bring the hands to prayer, gently pressing the palms of the hands into each other. Again, just nice, gentle breathing. And then from here, you're done. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks for letting us into your space. As I mentioned before, these are some simple movements that you can do at home to help you get a little bit looser, to help you get a little bit stronger. And with all yoga, you just remember that practice makes better. Thank you.